As you know, mental health is a universal concern affecting individuals across all demographics. Globally, 1 in 8 people live with a mental health condition. In Canada, 1 in 5 people will experience a mental health issue in any given year. In the Sudbury and Manitoulin district, approximately 10% of individuals aged 12 and older have reported moderate to severe depression symptoms according to phsd.ca. What is mental health? Everybody talks about mental health, but what is well-being?
When I think of mental health, in defining it, it's very personal. It is very, very subjective, because how you define mental health is going to be probably a little bit different than how I define it.
Why are people reluctant to talk or seek help about their mental health and well-being?
Joy is important to us. I mean, when I really think about being reluctant to ask for help, I'm probably in a moment of not having joy or happiness in my life.
You know, social media makes us compare our lives to others. So how can we stop this and protect our mental health?
When I think of social media impeding or bringing me to a point where I don't have quality of life, where I'm not enjoying life.
What are the early signs and symptoms of depressions or anxieties and other mental struggles? Right, hello, namaste, bonjour, good evening, and welcome to another brand new edition of Beyond the Borders Season 1. My name is Arjun. You are listening to us on 96.7 CKLU, CKLU.ca, and Radio Player Canada. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Arjun, and today on the show, we're gonna be talking all about mental health. So as you know, mental health is a universal concern affecting individuals across all demographics. Globally, 1 in 8 people live with a mental health condition. In Canada, 1 in 5 people will experience a mental health issue in any given year. In Ontario, mental health challenges are prevalent, with many residents facing barriers to adequate care. In the Sudbury and Manitoulin district, approximately 10% of individuals aged 12 and older have reported moderate to severe depression symptoms according to phsd.ca. So this week we are honored to welcome Chris Coulombe, a dedicated mental health educator at the Canadian Mental Health Association, CMHA Sudbury, Manitoulin, with over 20 years in public health. Chris has been a beacon of support and education in our community. A certified trainer in mental health first aid, suicide prevention, and wellness recovery. His extensive experience includes roles with Public Health Sudbury and District, the Ministry of Health Promotions, and the Health Science North Addiction Medicine Unit. Beyond his professional endeavors, Chris is deeply committed to community service, having volunteered extensively with organizations like the United Way and NISA, Northern Initiative for Social Action. He currently serves on the board of directors for Monarch Recovery Services, and beyond his expertise, Chris is a proud father of 6 beautiful daughters and a grandparents of 2 grandsons. And a passionate advocate for mental health and substance use addiction recovery in our community, Chris believes that mental health education is not just professional, it's personal. All right, so join us for insightful and impactful conversation as we discuss breaking stigma, building resilience, and creating support system that truly make a difference here on Beyond the Borders. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate the invitation, Arjun, to talk on your show today.
Thank you so much for your time and for your presence. It means a lot because mental health is a very sensitive topic, and it's a very universally talk topic, I believe. So, without any further ado, I directly jump into the questions. So, Chris, what is mental health? Everybody talks about mental health, but what is well being? And how prevalent is mental health illness in our communities? And also, can you share recent data on mental health issues in Canada, Ontario, and specifically in Sudbury?
I love the way you started the show with that song, Mental Health Matters.
Yeah.
You know, that is a slogan that we've seen many times. And when I think of mental health, this is not a new conversation. This is something that we've had that needs to continue. And this is a great opportunity to do that. When I think, for example, of the Canadian Mental Health Association, which was founded, over 100 years ago, and it was founded in 1918, just after the First World War. And when we think of, soldiers coming back and post-traumatic stress disorder wasn't really coined in those days, but we understand that there was a huge impact on how to cope with life circumstances. And when I think of mental health, in defining it, it's very personal. It is very, very subjective, because how you define mental health is going to be probably a little bit different than how I define it. Because of what? Well, because of our lived experience, right? When I think of, for example, coping with stress, we all have stress in our lives, and stress is actually, it can be motivating, and we understand that it allows us to be productive in many ways as well. But when it's overwhelming, and when we get to a point of feeling burnt out, and we're unable to cope, that's really what mental health is about. It's about bouncing back from that. When I think of, and interestingly enough, today I spent the day with families, and it was a kind of a lively engagement over at the Sudbury Arena here in our community. And I was talking to a lot of young people, a lot of youth, about, what does mental health mean to you? And when I think, and I hear how well we're able to talk about mental well-being today, and that we're open about our feelings, and that we're understanding the importance of having a conversation about thoughts that we have. Because it's really our emotions and our thoughts that really encompass the wellness when it comes to our mental well-being. And when I look at the behaviors, well, they're a result of our thoughts, and they're a result of how we feel.
Right.
I remember asking a young person today, probably 7 or 8 years old, is it possible to be happy all the time? And when we think about being happy all the time, the little girl, she kind of thought about it. She says, well, no, I'm not always happy. I said, that's right. We can't be happy all the time. And that conversation is something that, we need to really have today. And it's important for us to understand that when we are looking at being overwhelmed and reaching a point of being burnt out, and maybe depression, maybe anxiety, we're not coping with those symptoms, and we're maybe recognizing that these signs are in our lives today, that's when we need to ask for some help. And when we think about asking help, it's not a weakness to ask for help. I don't know, I remember I was born and raised in Sudbury. I was born in the flour mill here. And I remember as a young person, I remember hearing the theme of, I remember hearing like, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. I don't know if you ever heard that before. and then when I think about that, because we had to be tough, we always had to it was almost like you had to show strength. And today we're changing that language. And I love the fact that, the song you started off with is really about being kind to ourselves, and being loving to ourselves, and understanding that we don't have to be strong all the time. We need people in our lives. And when I think about individuals who have mental illness today, I'm here to say that mental illness is treatable. Yes, we got to a point of being overwhelmed, and yes, we probably did receive a diagnosis. And you started off today by kind of giving us some stats, right? In any given year, 1 in 5 Canadians are diagnosed with a mental illness. So when I think of 20% of Canadians diagnosed in any given year with, and again, when I think of, I mentioned anxiety, there's anxiety disorders. There's many anxiety disorders. and depression and bipolar and schizophrenia and many other illnesses, what we're here to say is that they're all treatable. And many of them are preventable as well. And that's the key. The key is to get the help so that we can, prevent this sense of being overwhelmed.
Many people hesitate to reach out for help. Why are people reluctant to talk or seek help about their mental health and well-being? And in addition to that, what advice do you have for someone afraid to seek support?
When I think of someone reluctant to ask for help, I see myself. I think back of when I struggled, as even as an adult, and I remember wanting to always be strong, wanting to always, be the provider. And you kind of highlighted that I have 6 children, right?
Yeah.
A blended family. So I have 3 daughters, and my spouse has 3 daughters. And today, we find joy in having, but joy is important to us. I mean, when I really think about being reluctant to ask for help, I'm probably in a moment of not having joy or happiness in my life. And in order for me to find that again, I sometimes might have to deal with some of this feeling of embarrassment, or maybe of shame, or maybe there's this sense of guilt, that prevents me from asking for help. And fear is really what we're talking about. So when I think of myself, even as a young adult, and I was a graduate from Laurentian University, I was an alumni, and I remember moments where, I struggled. I struggled talking about how I was feeling. And it's totally normal. What we're here to do, though, is we're here to talk about this stigma that occurs. See, stigma is really, it's an unfair belief, about something. And it comes from somewhere. So we have to uncover what those beliefs and attitudes are. And I don't know, today I think of moments in my life where I maybe had this sense that, maybe it wasn't worth it. Maybe this is how life is. And we kind of understand more and more that self-talk, that negative self-talk, can have a huge impact on our well-being. And when I think of someone reluctant to ask for help, I'm usually going back to these negative, impacts that are occurring. And don't get me wrong, I think, we can feel alone and still have joy in our lives, right? But when we're alone and we feel like there's nobody else there to help us, that's where I'm here to tell you that, we need to reach out for help. And that's the important piece here, is recognizing that, I think most of us want joy and happiness in our lives. And when I think of those things, they're probably connected to people around me. They're probably connected to things that I enjoy, and I don't know, maybe nature is something that brings joy to you. I know for myself that's something important. One individual today, a young boy, I asked him, what brings you joy? And he says, my dog. And I thought, wow, what a powerful answer, right? When you think about it, right? Our pets are part of our family. And if that's bringing us joy, you can kind of see how it's pretty personal. And again, if I'm reluctant to talk to someone and I have the sense of feeling embarrassed, I need to uncover that and maybe have a conversation with someone who can help me. There are things that are helpful and there are things that are unhelpful. Would you all agree that maybe, if I'm struggling and I'm looking to deal with this pain, because really we're talking about pain, I might use substances, for example. I might do things that are unhealthy. And those are really things that we need to talk about. And it's really worth investing in. We're worth investing in. I think that's the key message, is that you are worth investing. And our listeners today as well, understand the value of having that person in our lives that has our back, that will listen and not judge. I think those are the key things that are really important.
So you just talk about stigma.
Yes.
So what is the stigma and stigmatizing language? Why it is important for us to continue this conversation?
A great question. And when I think of the language that we hear sometimes, and maybe you've been here before, and when I think of stigmatizing language. We'll often sometimes hear something like, "Oh, don't worry, this will pass,"
Right.
or just suck it up, just man up. Boys don't cry, men don't cry. You probably heard that before,
Yeah.
right? So you can kind of see how that really doesn't lead to a conversation that is helpful in dealing with a life circumstance that needs to be talked about. I know even like snap out of it, or don't cry. Like those are things that can be very harmful in our conversations. So when I think of language matters, you talked about mental health matters. Well, language is just as valuable. There's a course that we offer, and you kind of highlighted it a little bit in the introduction around mental health first aid. Many of us take first aid, and we understand the value of first aid. The value of first aid is to save lives. And for most individuals who are working in certain areas, they're mandated to take this course, and they get a refresher every 3 years. What we're recognizing is that as a first responder, those are important tools to have. And imagine the number of conversations we have with individuals who are struggling. And when I think of the tools that we have available to help an individual who's struggling, boy, oh boy, it's nice to know how you can support someone. See, we're here, the Canadian Mental Health Association is really about helping you help yourself. But how I can help you help yourself is to really have this difficult conversation. And to initiate a difficult conversation that allows us to connect with supports and services that are going to help us. That's the key thing. And when I look at some of the supports that are available in our community, it's important for us to be aware and to recognize that people are there to help, and that there often are programs that are at no cost. We're funded by the Ministry, of Health Long-Term Care to bring mental health, free mental health support and substance use and addiction support services to our community. And we're blessed to be able to have staff that are skilled and that are passionate and that really have this caring sense, that they really want to make a difference. And I'm asking people to reach out for help, as much as possible.
All right. So those who are listening to us, or maybe as I mentioned the data in the beginning, what are the early signs and symptoms of depressions or anxieties and other mental struggles that people are going through? And what strategies are useful to cope up with stress, anxiety, and loneliness and mental health struggles?
Okay, excellent. When I think of the two most common, if we think of just depression and anxiety as an example, if I think of the signs and the symptoms, a good analogy that I often will use and that I heard and that people really resonate with is the idea of the thermostat. I mean, it's cold, right? We're in February. We've already arrived in the month of February, and when you think of the thermostat in your home, it helps to adjust the heat. And imagine if that wasn't working. Imagine if all of a sudden you woke up in the morning and the furnace was not operating, the thermostat kind of kicked off. You'd be calling someone, right?
Right.
So when I think of that example, well, we have an amazing system. And when you think of, maintaining, our blood pressure, maintaining our blood sugars, maintaining this homeostasis, system that we have, and even brain hormones. When you think of the release of brain hormones, to deal with stress, this is all happening just like the thermostat. It helps to kick in and to really allow, us to, for example, have that little dosage of cortisol to deal with anxiety that's appeared in our lives. And when I reflect on the example of the broken thermostat, well, a person who is struggling and isn't able to bounce back in the way that they usually bounce back, they need help. And what we come to understand is that if we're reluctant to go see the doctor, And don't get me wrong, I don't like to go see the doctor.
Right.
But I do understand that, there are moments where I have to go see the doctor, right? And it's the same thing here. If I have a symptom or a sign and all of a sudden I have this feeling of worthlessness or hopelessness, or I have these physical ailments, and I recognize that my breathing has changed a lot, my heart rate is increasing. Like, these are things that we need to be aware of, and these are symptoms that we all need to recognize and not ignore. I mean, many of us can probably sometimes just dismiss it, right? Like, this is going to pass, right? And maybe it will, but if it's lasting and it's persistent, it's so important for us to recognize that we need people in our lives to help us. And maybe it's just a regulation with the help of medication that can help us bounce back, And those are the things that we need to talk about. Those are the things that we need to encourage individuals to seek. And when I look at mental health first aid, it's about how to help an individual and encourage access to these supports. And to deal with the fact that, listening, non-judgmentally are things that don't come easy for most of us.
Right.
A lot of us will avoid it. A lot of us will, dismiss, or just miss those things altogether because we're busy and maybe we don't have the time, or maybe we just don't know what to offer. And boy, it's nice to be able to help someone in a moment when they really need it.
Well, when it comes to international students, and immigrants, they face unique mental health challenges, including balancing studies and work, isolations, homesickness, financial stress, cultural adjustment, What are the most common mental health struggles they experience, as per you, and what resources or strategies can help them cope effectively, before reaching a crisis point? What do you have to say on this?
Great question, and when I think of the great partnership that we have with our post-secondary institutions, and this is an example of the work that I do in health promotion. We actually work really closely with international students.
Okay.
There is the Center for Innovation on Campus Mental Health. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those supports, but what we understand is that there's a need for more tools. There's a need for more opportunities. And at the beginning of the show, there was a little bit of I think a promotional piece from Bounce Back, that talked a little bit about the importance of having this information in our own language, for that matter. And those are tools that are readily available. And I attend, for example, 2 or 3 times a year, the campus community service fairs. And the community service fairs allows us an opportunity to talk about the campus counseling services available, but also the community services that we offer. And when I look at the partnership that's created, for example, with Cambrian College, we've done quite a bit of work with Cambrian, and of course we do work closely with Collège Pariyar and with Laurentian University to offer these opportunities to have these conversations. We want individuals to recognize that if we're not willing to go to the campus counseling support service, that we want to connect you with the community services. So when I think of our intake office, so we have an intake worker who, and again, we will contact individuals directly who fill out a self-referral form. So CMHA has a self-referral where you leave your name and your phone number, and we call you. So it's another great way, because sometimes that telephone can be very intimidating for us to pick up and to call. But to just leave a message, and I'll leave those resources with you so that you can share that. It's on our website. It's sm.cmha.ca, SM for Sudbury Manitoulin. But that allows you to have direct access to immediate support. And again, I'm encouraging you to go to the campus counseling services if you are on campus, and if you're in the community, connect with your local supports, in your clinics. Connect with CMHA, connect with Compass, connect with Health Sciences North, and their mental health and addiction services that they offer right here just down the street. Those are all, we all work in partnership. You know, it needs to be a collaborative approach. When I think of mental health, when I think of even suicide, for example, it is a community effort that is required. You know, we do not work in isolation, and we understand the importance of partnering and the importance of supporting each other. And is it easy? No, it's not easy. But boy, oh boy, when we have challenging conversations and we're able to help an international student or a newcomer to our community, and a good example is sessions that I offer for a lot of the career and employment agencies. We offer sessions that talk about accessing these supports. So we have an agency presentation that we offer that goes over all of the programs that we share that are at no cost to everyone in our community, including newcomers and international students. And those services, you know, again, it goes back to recognizing the importance of, you know, there are inequities in our community. There really are, and we need to have a frank conversation about it. And what's really important with looking at values, probably the most important value is really that inclusivity piece, right? That we respect individuals exactly where they are, and we look at the dignity of individuals. And it's important for us to connect you with the right supports. And we're very familiar with what's available in our community. That's really what we're here to talk about today. And hopefully listeners will recognize that, you know, even in Canada with the Canadian environment, right, in the winter, it can take a toll on individuals.
Yeah.
And when I think, for example, you know, I think we had this conversation earlier on about, you know, the cold and that it's dark early. That has a huge impact on our mental well-being.
Exactly, I was about to come to this question. So, in this harsh winter weather in Canada, with it's freezing temperatures and long periods of darkness, how can individual, you know, do to stay mentally healthy during this harsh winter weather here in Canada?
It's not easy to adapt or to adjust, and I think what's important to recognize is that we need to have a little bit of understanding. For example, if I think of the circadian rhythm is kind of disrupted in the wintertime for all of us, and what's happening? Well, we're not getting the melatonin levels due to the amount of light exposure that we have is changing, and it's going to have an impact on our well-being. And the reduction in daylight in the winter can really lead to what we're talking more and more about is seasonal affective disorder. You know, and how do we treat that? How do we come up with, you know, opportunities to deal with it? It's to have these conversations. It's to meet with an individual and encourage people to talk to their healthcare professionals about these symptoms that we're having. And when I think, for example, of the light issue, well, I understand more and more today that, you know, there are therapies available to help. You know, there are mood lamps that can actually enhance and increase. We call it, I forget what they call it, but I think it's luminance. Yeah, so we need a certain amount of luminance. I think it's like 10,000 luminance in order to really have optimal mood. And when I think of that as an example, I do recognize that if I'm not by a window, if I am, I don't know, for example, working night shift, you know, and not able to spend time outdoors because I sleep during the day, I need that exposure. You know, it's like B12 too, right? We understand that concept that, yeah, there's a deficiency in B12 that can have a huge impact on our physical and our mental well-being. So these are all things that we need to have conversations about, and encouraging an individual to talk about it is really the key piece. When I look at, again, weather, working in cold weather, it is not pleasant for anyone.
Right.
and adjusting and recognizing that employers have a responsibility to provide health and safety. So when I think of, the rights that we all have, we have to have these conversations with people. And I think when I look at an employer relation, there's got to be, that work-life balance, but that balance in recognizing what you need, and you're your own expert, so So having that conversation openly and directly is really going to make a difference. It's really going to make a difference, and if we need advocates, if we need someone to support us, that's what we're here for.
Exactly.
Contact CMHA and learn on how we can, access these tools, and maybe, help to learn how to communicate effectively with our supervisor or our employer.
So let's talk about workplace mental health in workplace. How do we support mental health in the workplace, and what are some common stress factors that could lead to mental health challenges and illness? And what tools and supports are available for work-life balance? I want to begin from there.
Again, when I think of workplaces, work-life balance, we hear that very often.
Right.
And we understand that many workplaces have a responsibility, and they have an understanding of the importance of health and safety. And when I think of health and safety, we often incorporate and add in policies that really protect the rights of individuals. So it goes back to, we have rights. So when we notice, or when we understand that there's these stressors in our workplace, and I don't know, the stressors could be maybe just not feeling comfortable with the role that we have, or maybe we're lacking some training in using a specific equipment, for example. You can kind of see how that can really have a toll on our health, and our mental well-being emotionally can really be under stress. So those are things that we have to talk about. And again, if we go back to the song we just heard, right? So when I have too much pride, there was a part in there, and I kind of like that when it talked a little bit about, it's like swallow your pride. It's okay to not know everything. And as a worker, we sometimes feel like we have to be on our game, and we have to be 100% all the time. And I'm here to say that life circumstances will get in the way of that. And conversations, when it comes back to, being appreciated, when it comes back to recognizing the workload, and having an open dialogue with your supervisor, with your employer about those stressors, is going to go a long way. Because we don't want people to have conflict in the workplace. The job demands are something that we understand. We might be, the best expert in that area, but when we're under stress and we need some help and we need someone to talk to, we need someone to lean on, right? Like the song said, we really need to have those champions, and they might. Maybe they're not at your workplace, but I'll tell you what, they're in your community. So reach out to the supports available in your community to be able to deal with these situations. Now, if I was to look at personal challenges, that could have a huge impact in my work life, I don't know, I think of an example of an individual who is maybe working shift work, right? Or maybe they're doing fly in, fly out. I think of friends of mine who are minors, and they leave for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then they come back. Imagine the stressors that come when you're missing your child's birthday,
Right.
or an anniversary, or an important. Like, those are things that can really have an impact on your well-being. And boy, oh boy, it's nice to have someone you can trust, that you can talk to. And sometimes that person that you trust is not a family member, and that's okay. It's okay. And I don't know. I remember, feeling like I always had to be the best. The best employee. I always had the sense that as a young adult that I wanted to be the best worker. The best spouse, the best father. Like all these things, right? And that's a lot of weight to carry on our shoulders. It's not possible, right? So we have to lean on other people. We have to ask for help. We have to understand that sometimes saying no is the right approach. You know people that say yes all the time?
Right.
I know many people, and I was one of those individuals that had a hard time saying no.
True.
Right? And that is a one way to manage with some of these things. Again, we're dealing with something that demands or requires a lot more conversations. Tomorrow, I'm speaking at Cambrian College in the afternoon specifically on this topic.
Wow.
It's mental health in the workforce. They have a conference, an accessibility conference, and I'll be speaking more about the tools and the supports that are available. We understand that accommodations are required. We understand that there are policies in place in our workplaces to help us, and we just need to be okay with getting the help. You know, you're not alone. You don't have to feel like you're alone. And maybe you do work in an environment where you're isolated and you're independent and you feel like you're alone, but you're not. You know, and that's the whole key is to say, you know what, ask for help.
All right, ask for help. And there is another major concern, especially among youth, and that is suicide. What are the warning signs and how can someone intervene? And what role do programs like ASIST and safeTALK play in suicide prevention?
Great question, and I've had the privilege to be a trainer specifically with Living Works and also with the Suicide Prevention Network in bringing education in this area. And again, we have to look and come back to the fact that suicide is preventable. It's definitely something that people are considering, right? It's an option. And when we think of suicide, we're usually talking about people's pain. See, most people don't want to die by way of suicide. Most people want the pain to go away. So what we're understanding more and more is that education is required to become a little more comfortable with the topic of suicide. You know, and we understand that there's a lot of stigma. We understand there's some taboo around the topic, you know, in certain cultures, and we understand that it is a community issue. See, here in Ontario, approximately 11.4 per 100 population die by way of suicide in Ontario. And in Sudbury, in our region, based on 2023 statistics, we're a little higher than that. We're above the provincial average. We're at 17.4 per 100,000 population. And when I reflect and I think of even rural communities and northern communities, those numbers increase. You know, in Canada, Nunavut happens to be the place where the most suicides occur, and the deaths there are in the 70 per 100,000 population, which is more than anywhere else in the world. So we have Indigenous communities, we have rural communities that have this sometimes feeling of hopelessness and helplessness. And ASIST, which is Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training, is about helping an individual have these difficult conversations and initiate in an opportunity to save lives. It's about saving lives. And when I think of intervention training allows us to really provide the space to deal with the pain, you know. And when I reflect on being ready, being willing, and even being available to have the conversation, you would probably agree with me that it takes some skills, and it takes some practice, and it takes some investment on our part. How many of us have been probably had suicide, you know, near and dear in our lives? You know, I can think of many situations where I went to funerals where someone has died by way of suicide. And I'm here to say it's preventable. Most people don't want to die by way of suicide. Most people just want to deal with the pain.
Yeah.
and talking about it is important. Safe-TALK is another great one. Safe-TALK is really, it's suicide alertness for everyone. And suicide alertness for everyone, it's a shorter version. It's only like a half a day training, and it's a great opportunity to help an individual access the intervention supports in our community. We have a Suicide Safer Network in Sudbury. I don't know if you're familiar with the Suicide Safer Network.
Not much.
Well, I'll tell you
Yeah.
what, I'm going to encourage your listeners
Yeah.
to look up Sudbury Suicide Safer Network and to participate in the process, because all of us are responsible in saving lives. And not just when it's close to home. We all have a role to play. And that network is a network of agencies and individuals who have an interest and passion in working in this area. We do a lot of education, we do a lot of advocacy, and it's not just CMHA, it's not just HSN, it's not just Compass, it's not just the schools, it's everybody. Everybody is responsible. This committee here is I'm obviously, you can see how passionate I am about. I sit on that committee, and it's important for us to continue to do the work. We have a World Suicide Prevention Day that we do annually. I'd love people to become more involved and to have direct and open conversations about it. You know, don't be afraid about it.
Yeah.
And when I ask someone, you know, when someone's missing school or not or coming to work, and they're sad, and there's just something different, they might be thinking about suicide, you know. And asking that question, are you thinking about suicide, will save lives. But boy, oh boy, when someone can finally say, yeah, you know what, I didn't know what to do with this feeling, but I do have these thoughts. And that's where the healing starts. But the healing can't start until we have an open, direct conversation about it.
Have open and direct conversation. All right, almost at the end. We have many questions. You know, social media is another factor. You know, social media makes us compare our lives to others. So how can we stop this and protect our mental health when it comes to social media?
So now we're talking about coping strategies.
Right.
When I think of social media impeding or bringing me to a point where I don't have quality of life, you know, where I'm not enjoying life, and I'm maybe, you know, like you say, comparing to others, I need to look at my routine. I need to look at my care plan. See, when I think of a wellness plan or a care plan, it might actually put some boundaries in place where maybe I limit the amount of social media, or maybe I take a break from it for a little while, you know. And I've done it myself, where I've decided that, you know what, I'm going to take a little break. And when we think of routine, you know, there are certain things in our lives that allow us to maintain wellness, and only you know what works for you. But for me, routine is really key. So I for example, do not want to be on social media or on a tablet before going to bed. Sleep is important to me. You know, I understand that I need that 8 hours of sleep every single night. So for me, a routine is like I'm in bed, 10 o'clock, up 6 a.m., you know, and social media, no social media before bed. You know, like these are things that can be very difficult for some individuals. But I think when you look at routines, wow, when you are able to kind of say, okay, I'm going to dedicate this much time, you know, on social media, that's okay. But if it's really having an impact in your life, you need to recognize that sign and maybe talk to someone and look at strategies on how we can decrease that. Addictions. I mean, we talk about substance use, right? We talk about addictions. Is it possible to be addicted to social media? I think so. I think we can be addicted to work. We can be addicted to many things, right? Gambling, and the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
So we're kind of looking at routine again. We're going back to the basics and looking at what can I do today? What are some of those anchors that I can really put into my life?
So as you said, would you like to add some more on like what can I do to stay well? Or what are some daily habits that can improve like mental well-being over time?
So one of the key things that I mentioned I didn't spend much time on is a care plan.
Care plan.
See, all of us have a wellness plan. We just maybe don't have it in writing. You know, most of us know what works. You're your own expert. So when I think about, you know, sleep, when I think about food, when I think about social activities, they all look different from person to person. And social media in there, like if I'm on social media and I'm isolating myself and I'm not accepting the invitation to have a family dinner on Sunday, and someone eventually notices that, hey, how come Chris hasn't come to Sunday dinner in the last month, and he's always got excuses? Maybe there's something that we need to talk about, and that's the conversation that really needs to occur. And when I think of a wellness plan or a care plan, is it's recognizing these things. It's accepting the fact that something is not quite right. Something needs to be talked about, something needs to be addressed. And how do I address it? Well, again, with someone that can help. And maybe that's not mom or dad, right? In reality, I look at the workplace, maybe I do need to make that phone call to the Employment Assistance Family Program, right? Maybe I need to look at this bounce back that we heard about a while ago. What's that resource all about? And CMHA, when I think of calling the intake worker and sharing this information with them, what programs are they going to recommend and refer? Because we haven't even talked about those, right? There are 9 programs that the Canadian Mental Health Association offers in our community at no cost. And we're not scratching the surface of that, but I'm encouraging individuals to go seek what those supports are and to really get the help that you need to help yourself. That's the key.
Yeah. So almost at the end, I was about to add about the services that are provided by CMHA. If someone needs help, you wanna talk about that a little bit before we leave?
Oh, absolutely. I think the most important thing to recognize is that our number one value is being person-centered. We want to meet people where they're at, and I don't think anyone likes to be told what to do, right? When I think of the work that I've done before with the Canadian Mental Health Association, it's about allowing individuals to make decisions and to really be kind of like that passenger in the vehicle, helping to navigate and to access the supports that are available. And when you first start the conversation with our intake worker will be the first point of contact. That first point of contact is so important. That half an hour or 45 minutes on a telephone or in person. And again, you can go, we have extended hours on Wednesdays, so Monday to Friday you can call us or you can walk into the office 8:30 to 4:30 and have someone to talk to right away. And when you are able to finally have an opportunity to look at this menu of supports available, we might identify that housing is an issue. We might identify that we're not happy with where we're staying. So we might be able to access housing programs, housing programs and supports. Maybe we need more assistance in the housing area. And maybe there's an opportunity for us to look at residential programs that we offer, And again, when I think of individuals who are maybe struggling with the issues with the court system, we have a justice program. So when I think of individuals navigating the court system, there's Crown Attorney offices. There's a lot there, and to have an individual who understands the landscape, is an expert, has the skills to navigate. Boy, what a difference it makes. And I know the justice program varies. There are many. I'm encouraging people, because I could spend an hour just talking about the justice programs, but I encourage individuals to reach out if they want to learn more about how to get help in that area. We have our shelter at 200 Larch, so we understand that the off-the-street shelter is available there, and it is busy, and we have some caring individuals who are there. On the second floor in that building, most people might not be aware, but we have a program called Healing with Hope. Healing with Hope is a harm reduction program, and individuals with substance use challenges, have access to this support. and we have an Indigenous worker who works there as well, and a lot of other programs there, along with our nurse practitioners clinic. So all those services are all available, but sometimes we don't know about it until we reach out.
Right.
And community mobilization, another great one. Some individuals in our community might be at risk of harm, or maybe even, imminent death. So we have a community mobilization effort, and we have what's called RMT. It's basically a roundtable that has partners from across the community who work together to really save lives. So those are all services, and myself, I work in health promotion, so I offer the mental health first aid, the ASIST training, the safeTALK, all of the other workshops that we offer in stress management, and again, self-care. So I offer those not only to community partners, but also to employers and community members. And we offer them on a regular basis. So I encourage you to look at our menu, go on our website. I do have a list of our trainings that we offer and a menu of the presentations that are at no cost.
All right, it's already 8. One more question. What message or advice do you have for families dealing with loved ones' mental health and addiction, both, in one sentence?
You're not alone. You're not alone. And again, help is available. Just ask. Just reach out. Connect. Connection is the number one message there is. Connect with people who can help.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.